Introducing National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24/7. For the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonja Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk for America.
Yeah, yo, it's game time, ain't no messing around. Huddle Sports Network, the best in town. From NFL rumors to the latest trends, we got all your sports, just tune in, my friends. Catch us on Roku, Fire Stick, take your pick. Facebook, YouTube, where the action's slick. Daily shows that drop like a bomb. From 10 to 11, it's Ken and Ken, stay calm. Huddle up, catch the vibe, feel the rush. Get your news, get your fills in the clutch. Over 27 podcasts, we breaking it down. Join the team, Huddle Sports, wear the crown. Live every weekday, it's how we roll. Lions Talk with Jeremy B, we taking a stroll. From 11 to 12, don't miss a beat. We break down the game, make the info sweet. The Daily Huddle Podcast, noon to 1. CST Zone, we're just having fun. Toss your doubts, we bring the facts. Tune into the Huddle.
And we are back. Good morning and welcome to our edition of the Mac and Jack Show. I'm Sonja with Keith Engel, Jack Hirsch, and we are here with this amazing show. Good morning, gentlemen, again. I know we spoke backstage. Hope you guys are doing well today. Happy Friday.
Good morning.
Last Friday of June.
Can't believe it.
Wow. We are officially in summer, and if you don't believe it, just open your door. Most of the country is 90-plus degrees, including you nor'easterners, Jack and Keith.
We're back out of the soup into 70-degree weather this last 2 days, so got normal.
Can you imagine someone who never listened to this show before, had no idea, and just happened to be scanning and came upon us? They think they were getting the Weather Channel here.
Jack, are you wearing suspenders today, by the way?
No, these actually, these are boxing gloves.
Oh, okay. All right, they're on the shirt. Now I get it. I thought you had some weird suspenders on.
I hate suspenders.
Well, speaking of heat and things that were not really super hot, the NBA draft beyond the first round, guys, what were your first thoughts on, let's go back to round one. Of course, Cooper Flag, like we predicted, actually did go number one to the Dallas Mavericks. Dylan Harper following right behind him at the number 2 spot. What were you guys' thoughts on round one? And what was the biggest surprise to you, if there was one?
Well, go ahead. No, I was just because I'll be quick, because after the first 5 picks, I mean, to me, it's like a whirlwind. There's guys getting picked, but they're really picking for other teams. It seems like 3/4 of the draft is somebody picking for somebody else, and the guys and the kids ending up over there. We knew Cooper Flag, and the first 5 picks were no surprise, right? The order was after Cooper Flag was to be determined, but no surprise there. Second round, kind of the same thing. I thought the Pacers did pretty good with only 2 second-round picks yesterday. I thought they did pretty well, actually. But we can talk more about winners and losers if you want after. Jack, you can give your overview if you want now, because my head's still spinning.
Good morning, Richard.
You look at the grades. I don't know, Sonja, Keith, whether you look at the grades afterwards.
A little bit.
Like ESPN will list the grades of each team. And the Dallas Mavericks get a B. What stupidity. Right there, turned off. How idiotic. They got Cooper Flag. That's an automatic A. and they get a B. But the two things that stand out the most to me in the draft that made the biggest impression, and one is going to be ongoing. What's going to be the situation with Ace Bailey? Before condemning him, let's see is there an issue of him going to Utah? There hasn't been an issue yet. He denies it. He didn't show up for the press conference, but that sometimes happens with other players because Utah's quite a ways away. So let's hold off for the time being. But the eyes on Ace Bailey. What's he going to say? What's he going to do? If he tells us by the end of the week, I'm completely committed to Utah, the drama's all over. He's committed to Utah. Nothing wrong has been done. But from Ace Bailey's perspective, think of it this way. This is a kid from Rutgers. He wanted to be close to home. His mindset, I'm going to get drafted by Washington, Brooklyn, and the one team that he didn't care to go to. I can understand it being the 76ers because he wouldn't have the same amount of playing time. And I can understand that, him not being happy maybe going there. But Utah, what's the excuse? He's going to be a star at Utah. He could be a star for the Utah Jazz. But I could understand his mindset was he was going to go to the Washington Wizards and maybe the Brooklyn Nets. But if he doesn't go to the Utah Jazz, I want to see the Jazz take a stand. Don't trade him away. Let him sit out the year. Lose the darn draft pick. Make a statement. These teams always buckle in to the other players. The other storyline, and there were two of them to me as a Nets fan. What the heck are the Nets doing? 4 point guards? 5 picks, and I'm a complete hypocrite. You know why I'm a hypocrite? Completely, because I've always had a theory with the NFL. So you're gonna like this. I would like to see a team 1 year who hasn't had a franchise quarterback ever draft a quarterback with every single pick in the draft. And by all the training camp, one of them has to emerge.
Oh my gosh.
The Browns tried.
They did.
They're trying, yeah.
They were close.
Jack, you're dead on it. That the one thing I will take away from the grading is Cooper Flagg's by far the best player in the draft in my mind. The guy who finished second in the NCAA Player of the Year award got drafted in the second round. To tell you that, if it tells you anything at all, I think he's a no-brainer and he's going to be good. The Nets just mind-boggling. And as far as Ace Bailey is going to be a bit of a project. He's maybe the rawest of the top 5 guys that got picked. He's got great talent, but he loses focus at times, and that was one of Rutgers' problems this year. And I know his pre-draft disposition hasn't always been the best in the way he's skipped certain things, trying to get himself to where he wanted to go. And it may take a few years for him to develop. These other guys may hit the ground running a lot more than Ace Bailey, but I think Ace Bailey at the end of the day will be a really good NBA player. It's just you're gonna have to be patient with him.
But if you tell me this, Dylan Harper went number 2 overall in the draft to San Antonio. Ace Bailey went, number 5 right after.
Yep.
And they both were teammates at Rutgers. And Rutgers, they had a losing record.
Harper's a much more polished player than Bailey, though. Bailey was up and down. And that was one, again, I said on the show the other night, how does the Rutgers coach probably got some explaining to do when you got 2 of the top 5 guys in the draft and you don't finish over 500. But part of it is because of kids like Ace Bailey, who you don't know which player you're going to get every night. Harper's a little different. I think he's consistent and more ready to play at this level.
And I got to ask this. I condemn people who say a team tanks. But are the Nets as an organization tanking for 1 year because they have their number 1 pick next year? I don't know who they're eyeing, but it's not like the NFL. If you have the worst record, it doesn't mean you get the top pick. Look what happened with Dallas, a 2% chance or so of getting the top pick, and they get Cooper Flagg.
Yeah.
So the Nets could be back conceivably, in the number 8 spot next year, even tanking, or maybe 5 or 6, not getting the player they might want. So it doesn't make sense to tank the season. But this kid from Duke, okay, I can't pronounce his name, the center,
Knuppel.
Knuppel. Yeah.
No, not Knapo. No.
Malachi?
Malachi, yeah. Went number 10 to Phoenix. The Nets could have taken him at number 8, and then they could have picked their 3-point guards after. I don't get all this. I just don't understand the sense behind, some of the strategy involved. I mean, it's one thing that the Nets didn't trade off a couple of their number 1 picks for the future, but I just don't get the whole strategy involved. 4-point guards, you throw them together. They're going to play them all together and hope, they don't do as well as they even did last year when they were 26 and 56, because they only have their number 1 draft pick for 1 more year next year. Then they don't have it for quite a while. Then Houston gets it the following year because of some of the wheelings and dealings the Nets have done in the past.
Yeah, who are you tanking for though? I don't know. You don't know right now. There's no Cooper flag. There will be, but there's no Cooper flag that stands out right now that you'd be tanking. Say, I got to go get that guy, right? So, one will emerge, but it's just a silly strategy in my mind. Anyway, tanking it's never a sure thing.
I'm really surprised that you guys. And good morning again, Richard. I wanted to say that let's go back for a quick second. The grading of some of these drafts. When you all mentioned that the Mavs got a B for Cooper Flag, most of the outlets I looked at, it said A+, at least for him. I mean, I think some outlets are looking at the fit, the team overall. That's what brings that grade down. But of course, the players themselves are going in with, A's, high B's, what have you. Let's look at what you said, though, Jack. The Brooklyn Nets had all these picks, 5 in the first round. And in fact, they were doing a lot of finagling behind the scenes to grab even more picks during the draft. I saw a couple of switcheroos. And I was literally shocked because this is a record for them to have first-round picks. A lot of the analysts have looked at the shooting ability of some of their selections, like Igor Demine and Nolan Traore. Those 2 guys in particular, the fact that they brought them in, what are your thoughts on them coming in? Because the shooting ability and the fit there is what's the issue here. Not necessarily, the fact that they had these picks, but what did they actually do to develop this team about the work ahead for this franchise?
Well, how do they all work together? That's the question, because they play the same type of a game.
Overlapping skills.
Overlapping skills. I mean, I can understand a player has one particular skill. The Lakers, for example, they signed an undrafted free agent out of Villanova whose one strength is he's a spot-up shooter. If he could find a spot on the court, he's wide open, you get the ball to him. He's a good shooter, so he'd be a situational player. But with the Nets, I just don't understand. It's like the Carolina Panthers, your Panthers in the draft, having 5 number 1 picks and using the first 4 of them on running backs.
Yeah, that'd be wild.
I mean, it would
sounds like something the Jets do, but I got you.
Yeah, something that the Jets would do, exactly, But but the overlapping skills, that's the thing, how they complement one another. Look, maybe it works out. Maybe the logic is the Nets are going to have their backcourt of the future now. And that's going to be that the players are going to develop over the course of the year. I think it's a throwaway season next season by all indications. And quite honestly, in New York, no one talks about the Nets. The Nets have become so irrelevant. I mean, you'd think New York, Brooklyn is a big, big marketplace, but no one cares. I mean, quite honestly, if you had to rate, all the sports teams in order of importance, I mean, I think the Nets would finish behind the New York Islanders. Even.
They'd be last. They would definitely be last.
I mean, the Rangers obviously a historic NHL franchise, but I think the Nets would be last. If New York had to vote, all sports fans, what team to get rid of? Who would go in the expansion draft to another city? I think the Nets would be the team that they would move on from.
Agreed. They're always going to be the little brother in New York City. They're always. It doesn't matter how bad the Knicks are. The Knicks will still be more popular than the Nets.
Yeah, even Spike Lee was at the draft last night for round 2. He was there. I'm like, Spike is everywhere with the Knicks.
Well, Spike wanted to see that. He knew they were taking somebody from France, so I'm surprised he wasn't in France for the draft. Actually.
Right. He was literally yes, he was.
I couldn't have picked the guy, and the guy the next besides taking another Frenchman where they've never had any success, this guy's not even an impact player in France. How's he going to be an impact player here?
What was his name? France Weiler, whatever, who they took ahead of Ron Artest, a French player who averaged 8 points a game in the French league and never got on the Knicks roster. Why didn't the Knicks just trade that pick?
Every year.
That was they had the 50th pick, and you're talking about Mohamed Diawara.
Yeah.
Diawara. He was a forward from Cloette Basket in France. Right, like who?
Sure, like 5.8 points a game, 5 points a game, basically. I mean, the guy is yet to turn into an impact player in his own country, which isn't known for. There's been some good players come out of France. I'm sorry, I don't mean to demean the whole country, but Knicks have never had any success there. I don't know why they keep going back.
Well, it's also worth noting that the Knicks actually forfeited their own second round pick. Let's talk about that because they tampered when they got Jalen Brunson.
Yeah.
I had forgotten all about that because even like you guys said, no matter what surrounds them, the drama, this whole issue with Jalen Brunson and picking someone that I had never heard of before that's only scoring 5 points a basket. They're the beloved team of New York. So, I mean,
I tend to do the same thing. We all deride the second round of the NBA draft. It seems like, who cares? We trade. They just traded 5 second round picks or something for Kevin Durant, right? Second round picks. There's some good players. Jalen Brunson was a second round pick. Jokic was a second round pick. There's some good players that have come out of that second round. Not a lot of volume. And this year, I think Johnny Brown is going to be a guy to watch out of the second round this year with the Sixers. I think a good spot for him, even though he's got first round talent in my mind. And I was shocked he went in the second round, but I think it's a good spot for him.
There's some value in the second round in the NBA draft, a little more than there seemed to be years ago, because I think teams need more depth, a little more than they did years ago as far as the way they use their benches today. I mean, there are too many minutes that sometimes it seems to be logged on the starters.
Well, wait till they make it 10-minute quarters. They won't need all those guys.
Yes, that's the other thing. They're talking about, they're already moving that way for college.
Compared to years ago, I'm saying years ago they logged a lot more minutes.
For sure.
But they were talking about with Commissioner Adam Silver about the Achilles injuries. They've had 7 Achilles injuries.
Ooh.
And that's a devastating injury. They had 7 this year and they had none last year. Now they're studying, does it happen during youth basketball? Does that set the stage for it? I can't believe that's the case. I mean, I gotta believe it suddenly creeps up on you. I don't know what the medical science is, but it's such a bad injury, these Achilles injuries, because it's such a long rehab process. And it takes about a year to come back from. But look, players do come back. Kobe Bryant came back from it. Kevin Durant came back from it. So a player can come back from it. But is he going to come back 100%? Is he going to come back 85%? Look, a great player like Kevin Durant, 85% of him is better than the vast majority of players at 100% that might not be as noticeable. But it's such a tough injury to come back from.
You never know. I ruptured my Achilles at 48. I was never the same. I was never the same.
How long did it take for you to get back to normal living?
Well, after rehab and everything, it was probably, 10 months after surgery. You're in a cast for 2 months and then you start rehab. But I wasn't playing professional sports either, right? I wanted to get in my car and drive my car because it was my right leg.
How long did that take for everyday living to drive your car?
Let's
see, probably 5 months, 4 months, 4 or 5 months.
Wow.
So I'm going to tell you guys, that's the thing. It's not even though Achilles is devastated, it could be any foot injury. I had my foot surgically broken the same week that Greg Olson of the Carolina Panthers broke his foot. Mine was surgically broken because I had some issues with bone spurs. Went to a bad doctor that treated it, and they jacked it up, so I lost all the cartilage. The recovery was so long because it was my driving foot too. Had the surgery, y'all, September of 2017. Got out of the. They had a soft cast on it. Started doing the rehab. Developed. They call it CRIPS, CRPS, which is an inflammation. Then they found out after 6 months, y'all, March of the next year, I went into a regular cast because there was a part of it that was still not healed. The bone was still separated. So I had to cast 6-8 months later in a leg cast, a full cast, and go right back to square one. And this is the thing. I'm a regular person. I played sports growing up, off and on some sports, but these are athletes. And I feel like going forward, Jack and Keith, they may, if this continues, especially 7 is a lot for 1 year. Maybe next year, hopefully next year, it won't be as many injuries. But say you are a regular player, not superstar, but you're just enough to stay on the starting lineup. And you have this type of injury,
Bench player.
end your career. This could end you where you could never come back. And so I think that the league may do what the NFL is doing. They may start proposing special shoes or shoe inserts to possibly reinforce the shoes that these guys are wearing.
You know, I don't know about all the injuries that was referred to earlier from this past year, but looking at Halliburton and Durant, these were very eerily similar injuries because what they happened after really kind of not ignoring, but trying to play through a calf muscle injury. Both of those guys had serious calf muscle injuries and tried to play through them in the playoffs. Same thing happened to Durant, and they rolled up their Achilles after that. So ignoring another injury can also lead to this type of catastrophic injury. So,
you know, Keith makes a great point, and that I didn't even think of. Maybe the NBA should do what the NFL does in regard to concussions. If a player has a concussion, even if he wants to play, he shouldn't be given that option, or supposedly isn't given that option. They force him to sit out whether he likes it or not. Maybe if an NBA player has a type of injury that Halliburton had, the NBA just shouldn't allow him to play the medical team, no matter how much he wants to play. But could you imagine they had that rule, and it's the NBA Finals, and Halliburton's begging to play, and the Pacer fan base might be outraged. Look, he says he's okay to play. Let him play. And, you know, but in the case of Halliburton and Jason Tatum, I was listening to you, Sonja, and also Keith, with the injuries. Can they come back next year at some point? If you talk about 1 year, can they make it back before the playoffs?
I believe Durant. I feel like Durant didn't miss a full season next year. I could be wrong about that, but at best they're going to come back very, very late in the season or the playoffs, and then you're not in game shape because you haven't been able to do basketball activities all winter, right? So I think theoretically they could, but I don't know that it's likely.
Even some players, I mean, I was just looking here at major players. Dorian Finney-Smith underwent left ankle surgery for the Lakers. He's expected to be ready for training camp, but he played through the injury. So you have players that play through certain injuries that lead to worser injuries.
But there's as when it comes to Achilles, you got to remember there's two different things. There's a tear, like Aaron Rodgers had a tear, and then there's a rupture. I ruptured mine where it rolls right up in the back of your leg, and that's the same thing that happened to Halliburton, I think. And a rupture is much worse than a tear. Both rehab time and you know, just coming back to some semblance of your former self. So
that's got to be so painful. And I know they put you in an air cast. I actually had to wear one of those, and I had a friend that they have the same thing, the air cast, that you pump up the air. And
well, they kept saying when Aaron Rodgers ruptured his, they kept saying when he tore his, they kept saying he ruptured it, but he was kind of putting weight on it as they helped him off the field. And I'm like, he didn't rupture it, because you rupture your Achilles, you're not standing up on it. I can tell you right now, there's nothing there but mush. That's all there is.
Now, it would have been interesting had the Jets been in playoff contention, and it was a very important game, the last game of the season, to see if Aaron Rodgers from September to December, he was making some noise about playing. It could have just been all talk, but could you imagine the Jets were right there in contention? To see whether he actually would have tried to come back and play. That would have been wild. That would have set a pattern for athletes to look at, maybe a bad pattern, kind of the same way in boxing when George Foreman at an old age regained the heavyweight championship. Now all these old fighters, mid-40s or whatever, thinking, well, if George did it, I can do it.
Good morning, Skull Roy. Let me ask you guys this. So I noticed that, of course, talking about injuries, Joel Embiid is always at the forefront of this conversation with the 76ers. Of course, in round one, they picked VJ Edgecombe out of Baylor. Everybody's got high reviews on him. He was a number 3 pick. And in round two, they picked Johnny Broome. I actually saw that, the center out of Auburn. They had the 35th pick. Do you guys think that those two picks that they brought in, they'll stay with the 76ers part one, because that anybody can move around? And number two, will they be impactful? And what do the 76ers do with Embiid? I mean, he is this is another season that the 76ers were projected to be decent, and then Embiid goes down again for a significant amount of time.
Yeah, I think both these guys will have an impact. Whether trade away, I don't know. But Johnny Broome will help them. I think they're not going to be able to move Embiid. I don't think they can move him with his contract and his injury history. I don't know how they can really move him for much if they do. But there's only got to be one stupid owner, right? But I think Johnny Broome helps take a little of the pressure off of Embiid. And what's his Edgecombe?
Edgecombe, VJ.
Yeah, Edgecombe. I think he's a fine player. Will help that team immensely. So I think the Sixers had a really good draft. I don't know if Pags would think the same thing, being a little tougher on his team maybe than I am. But from the outside, I watched Johnny Broome play a lot last year, and I can tell you Auburn was a whole lot better when he was healthy and on the court than they were without him. And I think he'll be an impact player. Is he going to be a superstar? I'm not going to say that. He'll be an impact player in the NBA, and he'll help that team.
I take exception to what you said about Embiid, about his value. He'd have a lot of value to another. And this is a guy that's a star. This is a guy that's one of the best players in the NBA if he's healthy. I could think of a couple of things off that. You mean to tell me the Timberwolves wouldn't offer a deal that would involve Rudy Gobert for Joel Embiid and given that, a little extra on top of Gobert?
They'd have to.
Joel Embiid. You mean to tell me the Lakers wouldn't give Austin Reeves and whatever else they could give to get Joel Embiid to the Lakers?
After their experience with Anthony Davis, you think they're going to trade Austin Rivers and draft picks? I don't think so. I think Embiid could get moved. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think they're going to get much back.
Wait. Anthony Davis was a major asset for the Lakers. They won a championship with him. It was a great deal.
In an asterisk season, sorry.
No, it's no asterisk season.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear shortened. They won an NBA champ.
Playing in a bubble.
The playoffs weren't cut short.
But they played them all. It wasn't real world basketball. It just wasn't. Not to me. Not when you're playing in one place, all the games. It's just different. And yeah, so they got that. They got a world championship. Oh, they did win a midseason championship too. Forgot about that.
Midseason, I don't care about.
I don't either. I was being sarcastic. That was sarcasm.
I feel like across all sports, and this just seems to be something I've noticed. Maybe you two have noticed it as well. Every time we have a player that is holding out for a big contract extension or a big contract, they get an injury, then they get the money, and then they're not available. I mean, we've seen it with Dak Prescott, and it's no difference with Joel Embiid. He just signed his extension September of last year.
Yeah.
And they owe him a lot of money all the way through 2028 and a possible player option contract for the 28-29 season to the tune of $55 million the first season, 59, almost 60 the second one, 64 that 27-28 season. And if he stays through the player option of 28-29, almost $70 million, y'all, but he's not healthy.
Well, yeah, he hasn't been a leader either with the Sixers. There was discontent with the team last year. They would call him out a little bit for his attitude. Now, I don't mean to say he's a bad guy. I think just frustration sets in because I think for a super player like Joel Embiid, he badly wants to win a championship, and he sees the team, the Sixers, not last year. Last year they were nowhere near, but before that, they just be a little short. They just could never quite fill that gap in to win, a championship, get to the finals. And I think it was a question of frustration.
I'm not knocking his talent. He is a great player. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking his talent at all. It's his health issues. And I do think he's more valuable to the 76ers than trading him because of what they'll get back for him.
Yeah, and in that same tone, I want to talk about New Orleans Pelicans. Of course, they picked it's number 7 in the round 1, Jeremiah Fears, the power guard out of Oklahoma. They got another good pick in number 13 that they got through Sacramento with Derek Queen. And then in round 2, they picked Ryan Nembhard out of Gonzaga via trade from Washington. However, they've gone through front office renovations, got some new people in there. The fans from the Pelicans initially thought, okay, this means that bye-bye Zion with new management. But they've actually come out and said, or at least it's thought to be said, that they're going to build around Zion, who we've seen be injury plagued. And I just don't know is this another just off-putting year like Jack kind of referenced earlier with the Nets for the Pelicans. I mean, can you even get anything for Zion if you were to trade him?
No, I'm just thinking New Orleans' strategy. So they wanted Derek Quinn so desperately badly that they figured they couldn't get him when they go at number 23. So to move down 10 spots to 13, they traded their number 1 draft pick last year, but they were drafting number 7. So did they think Jeremiah Fears is going to be a superstar? I don't understand.
I don't know about that.
Just draft Derek Queen at number 7. This way you keep your number 1 pick next year. And now you're going number 13 again.
Right.
I mean, if Derek Queen is so great, I don't get this. Why not pick him at number 7? I mean, Keith, you tell me, is Jeremiah Fears going to be a star in this league where they absolutely had to take him at number 7?
No, he won't be a star. Again, I think he'll be an impact player in the NBA, but will he be a guy you want to build around? Probably not, but neither is Zion. So,
but explain this to me. If they took Quinn at number 7 and they lost Fears before they picked number 13, which was a very good possibility that would have happened, wouldn't there have been someone at number 13 who would have been just about as good or close to it? You're giving up your number 1 pick next year, and the Pelicans, there's a good chance they're not going to be good. And that pick could have tremendous value next year that's going to go to the Atlanta Hawks now.
Yeah, as far as your question about Fears, if they didn't get him at 13, yes, there's probably 15 other guys just like Jeremiah Fears in this draft. So
that's what I mean, yeah. So you didn't have to give up your number 1 pick for next year. So with that said, the executive Joe Dumars does have a good track record. He's a smart basketball man. I mean, he's probably very confident in what he's doing, and that's why I have a little apprehension, because I do think Joe Dumars does get it. He does maybe see something, but Derek Queen has a reputation of being a little soft, perhaps. Like he's great in spots, tough in spots, but you just kind of wonder, is he really going to take it to a next level? Or is he going to be, I don't want to see like Zion Williamson, because Zion, when he's on the court, is darn good when he's on the court. But you just don't know what Derek Quinn is going to be.
I wonder what the Knicks would look like all those times you wanted them to trade for Zion, Jack.
No. It's worth a flyer on Zion without question.
Not now.
Zion is a difference maker, a major difference maker if he's on the court. If you're the Knicks and the Pelicans call you, what can you afford to give for Zion? I mean,
nothing. I'm not trading for him.
You wouldn't trade Mikal Bridges for Zion straight up, a Mitch
No.
Robinson.
Not today. I wouldn't. I might have. Listen,
Mitch
you couldn't talk.
Robinson and Landry Shepard.
You couldn't talk me into it like 3 years ago when we started having these conversations. I'm not going to do it now after he's been injured 10 more times. No, again, I don't think he's going to play enough to warrant giving up serious commodities for him.
Yeah, but
Mikal Bridges played really well in the playoffs. He's up and down. Played really good defense when he needed to. This is a kid who he might have needed a year to adjust to the Knicks. I think he's going to be vital to this team come next year.
I'll tell you, with the Boston Celtics being in a rebuild, you go into next season, and I guess the co-favorites to go to the finals are the Cavaliers and the Knicks, and the Magic a little behind them. The way I see it, like the old standbys, the old favorites always used to be like the Milwaukee Bucks, the Philadelphia 76ers, but they're not relevant the way they were before. So I guess the Knicks and Cavaliers going as co-favorites. And like I said, and the Orlando Magic just like a step behind now. That's the way it looks to me.
Knicks need to strike now. This is their best chance right now coming up. And that's why them being coachless still is head scratching. But
and maybe I shouldn't count out the Pacers. Maybe Halliburton comes back playoff time. They're well coached. Maybe they have a good season. They've got to sign Miles Turner, though.
Yeah, but they're not you can't count them out, but they're still not in the top three in the East right now. I think it is the Cavs and the Knicks, and the Knicks have had their way with the Cavs, too, in important games over the last few years. So I like the Knicks' chances to get over the hump here, and they got to do the right things.
Yeah, and in the terms of Spike Lee, you literally gave a shout out to Spike with his "Do the Right Thing" memo there. I was kind of shocked though, Keith. Speaking about,
he doesn't need much.
You got me laughing, Sonja, with Spike. I was just thinking, can you imagine you get this wild, crazy McCaffrey owner like a Jerry Buss, for example, and he gets his new coach. Could you imagine he gets Spike Lee to be the head coach, and Spike has a staff running all the basketball things, a bunch of smart assistants, but the entertainment thing, Spike on the bench. The Knicks would be must-see watching just to see Spike on the bench, and Spike would accept the job. He absolutely would. And Spike loves the Knicks. It wouldn't be like a phony thing. He would love coaching, figuring, and he would listen to his assistant coaches. That would be off the rails. That would be great.
Listen, with not to hijack your comment, but earlier we were talking about Anthony Davis and his impact in L.A. Danny Fuller's a huge Laker fan, and I'd love to get his opinion whether he thinks the overall body of work was worth it for the Lakers with Anthony Davis.
No, my point is, Keith, you win one championship, it makes it worth it. It makes it worth it.
Not in LA.
Even if you mortgage your future to an extent, you've won your championship. When the Timberwolves made that crazy deal, giving up 9 draft choices for Rudy Gobert, that was insane. My thought was this: the Timberwolves have never been to an NBA Finals. If they can get to an NBA Finals one time because Gobert's a major contributor, it would have made the deal actually worth it. That's the thing about it.
Success in Minnesota is not the same thing as success in LA.
Right.
But they won a
different markets. Thank you, Danny.
Listen, one
Danny's a kiss
championship
up, I'm telling
everything. We joke about, and Aaron, Sonja likes to talk about our favorite topic, Aaron Rodgers. I'm only kidding. I like to talk about him. It's on me more than Sonja. But Aaron Rodgers went to one Super Bowl. They won it with the Packers, the Super Bowl MVP. You take that away from him, that's all we'd be hearing. Aaron Rodgers never won. He's not a winner. He's not this. He's not that. But you get it done one time. You can't take it away from someone. Look, Willie Mays won only one World Series his whole career. Hank Aaron won only one World Series their whole career. It wouldn't have made them any less great if they didn't. But at least they grabbed that one. Remember that series on HBO with the Lakers, with Magic Johnson talking to Jerry West, and Jerry West is talking about how tormented he is losing in the finals. And Magic Johnson said, well, at least you won one.
I think your comparisons to two of the greatest baseball players of all time and Anthony Davis is a little skewed, actually. But
okay, let me throw this by you. You're correct on that. Let me ask you, Sonia, this too, and Keith. Is Anthony Davis going to be projected to be a Hall of Famer? That's an interesting question. Interesting question. You might be talking about a future NBA Hall of Famer. I think he's going to get there. A few more seasons playing really well. I think he gets there.
yeah, it's to me.
Maybe
it's
an honorable mention. It's too early. Maybe, like you said, a few more.
Yeah.
Very borderline right now, for sure.
Okay.
He's got to have like a slam dunk of a performance going on through from the rest of his time in the league. Honestly, like I've just seen too much back and forth with him.
Yeah, it's also staying on the court and not being injured. That's not necessarily his fault. So again, I'm not faulting his game, right? But being the best, what was the term I heard? The best. Oh crap! I can't remember the term. The best something is availability. What was?
The best part of being
stability is availability.
Yes.
So
yes. Okay, Danny says LBJ and AD getting the Lakers one banner isn't worth the money. AD is not a Hall of Famer as of
today. I'm saying projected. I agree completely with Danny. He's not it as of today, but he's in a great spot with Dallas. You know, Kyrie comes back healthy. If AD can stay on the court, and with Cooper Flag, and they have, some really nice pieces on the bench. Dallas is one of the favorites to actually go to the finals next year. I know it's crazy now. Sounds crazy. They trade away Luka, and then in the following season, they're one of the favorites.
It worked out. Things worked out. The ping pong balls went right.
Yeah, and like I say about all the NBA verdicts and what have you, not verdicts, but the storylines here, the verdict is still out on these draft picks.
Talking like a lawyer.
I know your wife is one. I'm sorry, Keith. I always say the verdict is still out. So good luck to everybody. And July 6th makes the official date where we'll see where players land, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, Cooper Flag being only the second player from the state of Maine that actually got drafted and played. There were several others. I ran through it last night, but he and Justice Turner in 1994 that went to the Nets, the New Jersey Nets back then, are only the two players from the state of Maine that were drafted in the NBA and actually played. So kudos to them. Let's switch over to some NFL news here as we wrap up our last 17, 18 minutes. We're going to start with Jack here. Unfortunately, Jerry Philbin, star defensive end of the New York Jets during the 60s and 70s, and a key member of their only Super Bowl championship team, Super Bowl III, passed away a couple of days ago at the age of 83. Cause of death was dementia. He actually passed on Wednesday, Jack.
Yeah, Jerry Philbin was one of the leaders in the Jet defensive unit. When they won the Super Bowl, he played for 9 years. He had 3 years of double-digit sacks, which were hard to get at that time in the NFL. And like I said, he was just one of the leaders on the Jet team, one of the big voices, and one of the big contributors to them winning the Super Bowl. And, people forget, with that Jet team, that coaching staff that they had with Walt Michaels and Buddy Ryan, believe it or not, Buddy Ryan. And Buddy Ryan, I think, takes more pride in being with the Jet team than any other job that he had. Because when his son Rex got the Jet job, he said, "Don't mess this up. This is my team." He thought of the Jets as being more his team than the Bears were. And Jerry Philbin was one of his guys. And I remember Jerry Philbin after the Jets won the Super Bowl. He was being interviewed the next day, and perhaps he took a little bit too much of a hard knock at the Baltimore Colts. He's saying, well, not just us, Kansas City and San Diego, they would have beaten them good too. So that it was a high moment for Jerry Philbin. He played at Buffalo. He was a local guy he played at Buffalo in college, so he was a local guy as far as New York went, New York State, going from Buffalo to New York City to the Jets. And one of these, impactful players when he was with the Jets. And, it's a shame when these guys retire, you don't hear too much from some of them later on. And the Jets had a really good defensive unit, guys like Berlin Bidge, Jim Hudson, Al Atkinson, one of my favorites, Johnny Sample, their defensive captain.
Yeah.
And good players to remember. They just had that one big year where they won the Super Bowl. The next season, even though the Jets went to the playoffs, they were eliminated the first game, against Kansas City. But and he's the second defensive end, Jerry Philbin, recently that passed away. Jim Marshall with the Vikings before that. But when I think of Jerry Philbin, I think a little more, I don't know about you, Keith, of the AFL than the NFL. Even though the AFL transitioned to the NFL, all those guys who started out in the AFL, they're always AFLers to me. They're never NFLers. Jim Marshall was an NFLer because he never played in the AFL. And it's odd that we think that way because the USFL guys, like Jim Kelly and Steve Young, we don't think of them as USFL guys. We think of them as NFL, and we got to say, oh, yeah, they started out in the USFL. But the guys who started out in the AFL, we always think of them as being AFL guys and not NFL guys, even though they played more games technically as NFLers.
I would agree with it. Namath included, by the way. And to some of the points you were making earlier, Jack, I don't think until more recent years that defense of that Jet championship team was given enough credit because they were overshadowed by Namath and that offense. That it was a defense that won that Super Bowl for him, that's for sure.
That mink.
And I think now as they've started to pass away, unfortunately, a lot of those guys. I think Larry Grantham died not long ago, a couple of years ago, maybe.
Yeah, linebacker, yeah.
Yeah, and I think you start to hear more about that, and people revisit it, and they go, "Man, that was a pretty darn good defense. It was really good, actually." And
I'm going to tell you, there was one part in the Super Bowl game that no one ever talks about that's forgotten. The Colts are down 16-0 in the fourth quarter. They have the ball on the Jet 1 yard line, and they got to score quickly. There's still time, if they scored 16-7, they still maybe could get a couple of possessions. They'll probably need an onside kick, but there's still time. The first down on the 1 yard line, the Jets stop them twice, Jerry Philbin and that defensive line. So it took them 3 plays, but imagine the time wasted on the goal line. And that tells you a lot about Jerry Philbin and the Jet defense, that it's first and goal from the 1 yard line, and it took the Colts 3 plays to punch the ball over.
My Al Baker was on that. Was it Al Baker?
Ralph Baker.
Ralph Baker was on that team, and interestingly, in the offseason, a lot of these guys still had jobs in the offseason.
Wow.
He was a teacher with my my late father-in-law on Long Island in the offseason.
During the offseason?
Yep, he knew him very well.
Man, that can you imagine athletes today getting a job during the off season? Think of your favorite players on the Panthers, Sonja, and one of them needs to get a job, in the off season. Players on the Jets today, or New England, whatever.
Tom Brady teaching.
That's wild to think of that. That they didn't get paid enough for full time. I mean, they got paid enough for full time, but to supplement their income, they were getting another job. There was this player once, I think I know his name, but I don't want to mention his name in case I'm wrong. It'll sound bad.
No, be wrong, Jack. Be wrong. You love to correct everybody else. Please be wrong.
What? He applied for unemployment insurance in the off season. Can you imagine your baseball player going to the unemployment office because you're not employed during the off season? The team cut him, even though he knew he'd get a job elsewhere. Technically, he was unemployed at that moment.
Sounds like Johnny Manziel. You can say his name, Johnny Manziel. It sounds like.
Can you imagine, like when Derek Jeter was a free agent, how fun it would have been? He goes to the unemployment office. I don't have a team now. I don't have a job right now. When I get a job, I won't collect unemployment.
Danny's, yeah, say it, Jack. We'll let you know if you're right.
Right.
No, I know.
Right. You said this was an NFL player, Jack?
No, a Major League Baseball player.
Well, I don't see it.
What time frame? What time frame?
I am not. Yeah, this is decades
Yeah.
ago.
He don't listen. I tried to find it.
Name wrong. I could get the name wrong.
We want you to be wrong. We are sick of you criticizing everybody else.
Getting sued for getting the wrong name.
Well, the guy's probably dead. I wouldn't worry about
it. Yeah, but still.
You're not going to be sued for that. You could put a disclaimer.
I don't know. I wouldn't want someone saying I'm going to collect unemployment if I'm
Jack, we know you get food stamps. It's okay. We know. We know you have an EBT card. It is okay. All right. So speaking of unemployed, now everybody knows, and of course, condolences to the Philbin family before we move on from that. Everybody knows that Justin Tucker was suspended by the Baltimore Ravens, where the NFL has gone ahead and imposed a 10-week suspension in case another team wants to take a gamble on him for violating the league's personal conduct policy. This is about all those inappropriate behaviors he's had with the likes of Deshaun Watson's references and spas and what have you. And shocking news that I do want to get you guys' take on. Shaquille Griffin, guys, has re-signed with the Seattle Seahawks, where he began his career. I didn't even know he was going to come back. Of course, him and his brother made a big explosion on the scene because his brother was actually playing with one arm. What a sight there. But the cornerback has signed a 1-year contract with Seattle starting in the secondary. Did you guys know that?
I did not. I always like when teams they go back to where they may have started their career. I think it's kind of cool.
Very cool.
He's right. I know when I'm wrong. I admit when I'm wrong. I do it enough.
Danny says he loves you. Let's talk about this Odell Beckham Jr. teasing a reunion with the Giants. Now, y'all know he's become a journeyman here for quite a bit. And now he's been without a team since December when the Dolphins released him. Now he's out there on social media talking about he could be reuniting and is interested in reuniting with the Giants. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
I think you don't even consider it unless attendance is lacking and you can provide something. Why would you want to go back to a guy who wanted to leave you?
Yeah.
Who was a pain in the butt to you? Why would you want to bring him back? The same way with Jamal Adams with the Jets. Mm-hmm. He forced his way out. Now he wants to come back. I hear the same story all the time. I've matured. I see things differently now. I was wrong before. That's fine. We forgive you, but you're not coming back. It's okay. We don't hate you. We appreciate the time you had here. Case closed. You're not having it anymore. I mean, is Odell Beckham wanting to come back while he was a star, still a great player? No, he's at the end of the line. He wants to get a job somewhere and figuring, I had happy days with the Giants. Now he looks back at and has all these fond memories, with the Giants. Listen, Odell Beckham could always look at it this way. He forced his way out, and he went to the LA Rams. They won a Super Bowl when he was with the LA Rams. Good for him. He's a Super Bowl champion. He can always say that. So good for him in that regard. Leave this Giants thing alone. The Giants aren't even going to consider it unless ownership really wants him back bad enough. But ownership doesn't meddle with the Giants, it seems.
Yeah, I just saw Danny's comment. I was going to say the same thing. Nobody else wants him. His career as an impact player is done. I don't remember getting on the field with the Dolphins last year. Maybe he did, and I just don't remember it. But it wasn't for long. He's always getting hurt or just lack of focus. He never matured. He got a little less selfish maybe, but no. You got a team. You're trying to build something in New York, and bringing him in is not going to benefit that.
Yeah, Danny, I love the comment, by the way. He says, Jack's never wrong except at home and on the shuffleboard court. Wow. And he said he's only showing interest in the Aints because nobody wants him.
When I retired, Jack and I are going on the pickleball tour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that sounds interesting. Guys, I do want to get your take on two different coaches. Of course, the season is upon us. We're getting ready to start talking about new season NFL stuff, my favorite time of the year. And believe it or not, a list has already come out about coaches that are on the warm seat, trending towards the hot seat if they don't perform in this next upcoming season. And believe it or not, one of the names that's being mentioned on there is the Buffalo Bills' Sean McDermott. I want to know what you guys' thoughts are on that. They're basically like the Bills have to win now, or they may be moving on from Sean. What are your thoughts on that?
You only get so many chances. I've thought Sean McDermott was in trouble a couple of times before this, quite frankly. He's been very successful. Not taking anything away from him. He'll get a job probably in a minute if he got fired. But you only get so long to actually get over the top and win championships. That's just how many coaches hang around for 20 years and not, he's not there yet, for 15 years, 20 years in one place without winning. Very few. There's very few guys like I'm trying to think of the Bengals coach.
Marvin Lewis.
Marvin Lewis. I mean, you don't get just to come back year after year and now win. So
he was there for a minute.
Yeah, Marvin Lewis, it makes me think of Stephen A. After the Bengals lost the playoff game for the umpteenth time, they always would get to the playoffs and lose. Stephen A. goes on and says, their brother should get fired. How do you call for a guy to get fired? I hate to call for anyone to get fired. Unless the team is really bad. Sean McDermott has had them up there in the playoffs every year. They've been consistently very, very good. You know what their problem is? The Kansas City Chiefs. That's their problem.
Maybe.
There's nothing wrong with the Buffalo Bills. The Chiefs just, with this mini dynasty who would take it up a notch. But I will admit this season, I don't think the Chiefs are going back to the Super Bowl. And if it's it's between the Buffalo Bills and Baltimore Ravens have a great chance to cash in, where Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, one of them could go to their first Super Bowl. If it's the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson and Buffalo falls a little short again, that is so darn frustrating, I'll tell you. But how do you fire the Bills if they're like 12-5 this year and they lose in the AFC Championship game? Sometimes I think you just have to keep running it back if you're close, and eventually you'll get the breakthrough. And that might be the case with Buffalo.
Not a lot of patience in the NFL today, though.
I was just thinking that.
And he's done that. He's been there. All sports. I mean, you just saw what happened to Tibbs, and it's the same kind of thing. If they decide that's as far as we can go, we've hit our ceiling with this guy, I think it's likely he will be looking for a job, and they'll probably have some mutual parting of the ways if he were to fall short again this year.
But what happens, the mentality is this. A coach doesn't quite get over the top in one job, so he gets fired and he gets a job somewhere else, and they hire a guy, chances are, who didn't win somewhere else for a long time. It's like musical chairs. Just stay put. You know who'd have a lot to do with my decision? Josh Allen. If he really likes Coach McDermott a lot, stay with him. Okay? Put your faith in Josh Allen and the rest of the players, and you're so close to getting over the top. Run it back.
I don't disagree. And again, I'm not saying he should be fired. I just think he will be. And again, you need to have a better option. If you say you're firing a guy because that's as far as he can go, that's what the Knicks did with Tibbs. But you have nobody in line that you can give me any evidence will take you any further.
You never have someone in line because you can't tamper with another team.
Well, everybody's should have somebody in mind if they're firing their head coach. They should.
Yeah. Absolutely should. And we're here at the last minute, so I'm going to wrap up this comment here. Keith, Jack, always a great show. Danny talks about it's going to be bye-bye if Josh Allen decides to move on. And Keith made a good point. It is not for long league. That's what the NFL stands for. And with that being said as well, it could be one of these situations that we're looking at with the Steelers if Aaron Rodgers doesn't deliver, and even with Kyler Murray's Arizona Cardinals with Gannon out there, even though he's only been there 1 year. Everybody join us tomorrow morning for the debate show with Jack and myself and J Train. Join Keith Angle tonight for his shows. I'm live tonight with Prim and Proper Sports. Everyone have an amazing day. Enjoy this Friday. Stay cool. And thanks, guys, for a great show. Good day.
Bye, all.